There's a sound that never stops, not in your ears, but somewhere deeper. A constant hum of words and thoughts and commentary that fills every quiet moment before the quiet even has a chance to settle. You wake up in the morning and it's already there, waiting for you. The mental to-do list, the replay of yesterday's conversation, the planning for what needs to happen today. And beneath it all, like static on a radio you can't turn off, is this ongoing narration of your life. Judging what you see, commenting on what you feel, analyzing what you should do next. It follows you everywhere. Into the shower, where you're not really feeling the water but thinking about what you need to say later. Into meals, where you're not tasting the food but reviewing what happened earlier. Into moments that should be restful, except there's no rest because the noise is always there. Always moving. Always talking. Always pulling your attention away from where you actually are. And the exhaustion that comes from this isn't physical. It's deeper. It's the tiredness of never being fully present anywhere because your mind is always somewhere else. Always commenting. Always chattering. Always filling the space with noise. And you start to wonder if silence even exists anymore. If there's any moment, anywhere, where the inner noise actually stops. You've tried to find it. You've sat in quiet rooms and tried to make your mind go still. You've closed your eyes and focused on your breath, attempting to create the silence everyone talks about. And, maybe for a second or two, there's a gap. A brief pause where the mental chatter stops and you think, yes, this is it. I've found it. But then a thought arrives. Just one thought, and suddenly you're following it, and then another comes, and another, and the noise is back, maybe even louder than before. And now you feel like you failed, like you're not good at this. Like silence is something other people can access, but you can't. You've been told to quiet your mind, to let thoughts pass like clouds, to find your center. But every attempt seems to make the noise worse. Every effort to create silence just adds another layer of mental activity. Another thing to monitor. Another way to judge yourself for not doing it right. And the exhaustion deepens, because now you're not just tired from the noise itself, you're tired from trying to escape it. Tired from the belief that you should be able to make it stop. Tired from feeling broken because you can't seem to achieve what seems so simple when others describe it. But what if silence isn't what you think it is? What if you've been looking for the wrong thing, trying to create something that doesn't need to be created? Alan Watts spent much of his life exploring this question, not from a distant philosophical perch, but from the direct experience of someone who knew what it meant to have a restless mind. He understood the exhaustion of constant mental noise, the frustration of thoughts that won't quiet, the sense that peace is always just out of reach. And what he discovered through years of studying consciousness and examining his own experience was something that changes everything once you see it. Silence, he realized, isn't the absence of sound. It isn't what remains when all the noise finally stops. Silence is something more fundamental, more present, more available than that. It's the background in which all noise appears, the space that makes sound possible. Like the silence between musical notes that allows music to exist, there's a silence underneath and around all your mental noise. A silence that's been here all along, holding every thought, containing every word, present before the chatter starts and remaining after it ends. And you are not the noise. You never were. You are the silence in which the noise appears. Listen to any sound right now and notice something. Before the sound, there's silence. After the sound, there's silence. And even while the sound is happening, there's silence around it, underneath it, making the sound possible. Without silence, there could be... Without space, there could be no objects. And the same is true for your thoughts. Before a thought arises, there's something here. After the thought dissolves, something remains. And even while the thought is moving through your mind, there's an awareness of it, a knowing of it, a space in which it's appearing. That awareness, that space, that knowing, this is what Watts pointed to when he spoke about silence. Not the silence of an empty mind, not the silence that comes after you've successfully eliminated all thoughts, but the silence that's always been here. The awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear. The consciousness that knows both noise and quiet without being either. And this silence doesn't require you to do anything. It doesn't need to be created or achieved or cultivated. It's already here. It's been here your entire life. Every thought you've ever had has appeared in this same silence. Every moment of mental chatter has arisen in this same awareness. You just haven't noticed it because you've been so focused on the noise, so identified with the content of your thoughts, that you've overlooked the background in which all of it appears. When you hear the mental chatter, who is hearing it? When you notice that your mind is busy, who is noticing? There's the noise? Yes. The thoughts and words and commentary. But there's also an awareness of the noise. A knowing that it's happening. And that awareness, that knowing, is it itself noisy? When you become aware of a thought, is the awareness thinking? Or is it simply present? Simply knowing? Simply there? Look at your direct experience right now. Thoughts are happening. Maybe many thoughts, maybe just a few. But you're aware of them. And that awareness, the simple fact that you know thoughts are present, is that awareness itself a thought? Or is it something else? Something quieter? Something more like space or openness or silence? Watts saw that this awareness, this silent knowing, is what we actually are. Not the thoughts that come and go, not the mental noise that rises and falls, but the awareness in which all of it appears. And when you recognize this, when you see that you are not the noise, but the silence that holds the noise, everything shifts. Not because the thoughts stop, not because your mind suddenly goes quiet, but because you're no longer identified with the chatter. No longer believing that the inner noise defines you or limits you or prevents you from experiencing the peace you seek. But here's what happens. You hear this, and immediately the mind starts creating noise about it. Thoughts about whether you're doing it right. Questions about how to maintain this awareness. Judgments about whether you're really experiencing silence or just thinking about silence. And suddenly, what started as a simple recognition has become another project, another thing to achieve, another way to fail. This is what Watts called the noise about the noise. Most of your inner chatter isn't actually primary thoughts. It's thoughts about thought. Mental commentary on your mental commentary. The mind judging itself for being noisy. The mind trying to quiet itself, which is just more noise. The mind analyzing why it can't find silence, which is just another layer of mental activity. And this is why the inner noise never seems to end. Not because your mind is uniquely broken or especially chaotic, but because every attempt to stop the noise creates more noise. Every effort to achieve silence adds to the mental activity you're trying to escape. Every judgment about your restless mind is itself part of the restlessness. You notice you're thinking too much, and you think about thinking too much. You judge yourself for having mental chatter, and that judgment is more chatter. You try to stop the thoughts, and the trying is itself a thought. Layer upon layer upon layer. And what Watts understood, what he tried to help people see, is that this entire structure collapses the moment you stop resisting. The moment you stop trying to make the noise go away. The moment you stop treating your mental activity as a problem that needs solving. Because here's what's true. The inner noise you experience isn't just the natural movement of thoughts. Most of it is the resistance to that natural movement. Most of it is the mental effort of trying to control, manage, eliminate, or improve your thinking. And that effort, that resistance, is what makes the noise feel so overwhelming, so constant, so exhausting. When you let go of the resistance, when you stop fighting the thoughts, when you allow the mental chatter to be exactly as busy as it is without needing it to be different, something happens. The noise doesn't necessarily decrease. The thoughts don't magically stop. But the suffering around them dissolves. The struggle ends. And in the absence of that struggle, you discover the silence that was always here. Not as something you created, but as something you finally stopped overlooking. And this is where the seeking becomes another form of noise. Because once you hear that silence is available, that peace is possible, the mind turns it into a goal. Something to achieve, something to pursue. And now you're seeking silence, trying to find it, working to get closer to it, evaluating whether you're making progress. And all of that seeking, all of that effort, all of that mental activity around finding silence is itself the noise you're trying to escape. Watts saw this paradox clearly. The seeker and what's being sought are not separate. The one who wants to find silence is just more mental noise pretending to be something else. The thought, I need to find silence, is noise. The effort to achieve inner peace is activity. The evaluation of how close you are to silence is chatter. And so you end up in an impossible situation, seeking something that can't be found because the seeking itself is the obstacle. Trying to achieve something that can't be achieved because the trying is what prevents it. Looking for something that's always here but can't be seen as long as you're looking for it. This is why so many people feel frustrated with meditation and spiritual practice. They're told that silence is possible, that inner peace is achievable, that they just need to practice enough and eventually they'll get there. So they practice, they sit, they focus. They try so hard to find the silence everyone promises. And maybe they have glimpses. Moments where the mind does go quiet, where peace does arise, where silence is briefly experienced. But then it slips away. The thoughts come back. The noise returns. And they feel like they've lost something, like they had it for a moment but couldn't keep it. And this creates more seeking, more effort, more trying to get back to that state they briefly touched, more mental noise about why they can't maintain the silence they experienced. They don't realize that the glimpse they had wasn't something they created through effort. It was something that appeared when effort momentarily ceased, when the seeking briefly stopped, when the mind, exhausted from trying, finally gave up for just a second. And in that second of not trying, silence was simply here. Not because they did something right, but because they stopped doing anything at all. Silence, the way Watts described it, isn't empty. It isn't void. It isn't the blank absence of experience. Silence is spacious, alive, full. It's the aware openness in which all experience appears, like the sky that holds all weather, like the canvas that holds all paintings, like the ocean that holds all waves. The sky isn't empty. It's full of space. And that space is what makes clouds possible. What makes birds possible. What makes storms and sunsets and stars possible. And your awareness, your consciousness, is like that sky. It's not empty when thoughts appear in it. It's not full when thoughts are absent. It's always the same spacious presence, holding whatever arises, disturbed by nothing, changed by nothing. Thoughts come like clouds. Emotions move through like weather. The whole drama of your inner life unfolds like storms crossing the sky. And the sky itself remains unchanged, not empty, not full, just spacious, just present, just here. And this spaciousness, this aware openness, this is the silence Watts was pointing to. Not a dead silence, not an absence, but a living presence, the most intimate aspect of your experience, closer than thought, more immediate than any mental noise. The very fact that you're aware right now. That knowing is happening. That experience is being experienced. This is silence. This is what you are. And when you recognize this, when you see that you are this spacious silence and not the noisy content that appears in it, inner noise doesn't end because the thoughts stop. It ends because you stop being bothered by the thoughts. The mental chatter can continue, probably will continue, but it's no longer a problem. No longer an obstacle. No longer something that prevents your peace. Because you've recognized that you are not the chatter. You are the silence in which the chatter appears. Like being inside a warm house on a stormy night. The storm is still happening. The wind is still blowing. The rain is still falling. But you're not in the storm. You're in the shelter. You can hear the storm, you're aware of it, but it's not disturbing you. It's not threatening you. It's just weather happening outside while you rest inside. And this is what it's like when you recognize yourself as silence. The thoughts still move. The inner noise still happens, but you're no longer identified with it, no longer lost in it, no longer believing that it's who you are or what's preventing your peace. Living from this recognition doesn't mean you stop thinking. It doesn't mean you become some silent, withdrawn person who can't function in the world. Watts didn't advocate for retreating from life or achieving some permanent state of thought-free awareness. What he pointed to was simpler, more ordinary, more available. It's living with the recognition that you are fundamentally silence, fundamentally awareness, fundamentally this spacious presence in which all of life happens. And from this recognition, thinking continues. Thoughts arise when they're needed. Decisions are made. Plans are created. Conversations happen. The whole activity of life goes on. But it's no longer driven by the compulsive mental noise you're used to, no longer dominated by the constant commentary and judgment and analysis. Thoughts come when they serve a purpose, and when they don't serve a purpose, they simply pass through without gaining traction. Like birds flying through the sky. The sky doesn't grab onto the birds, doesn't try to keep them or push them away. Just lets them move through. And when you recognize yourself as the silence, as the awareness, you relate to thoughts the same way. They're allowed to come, allowed to go, allowed to be as frequent or infrequent as they naturally are. And none of it disturbs the fundamental silence of what you are. You will forget this. That needs to be said clearly. You'll have this recognition, this moment of seeing that you are silence and not noise, and then you'll get caught up in life again, caught in thought, identified with the mental chatter, believing again that you are the thoughts, that the inner noise is who you are, that you need to fight it or control it or escape it. And you'll spend hours or days completely forgetting that you are the awareness, not the content, completely overlooking the silence in which everything appears. And this is normal. This is part of how it works. Watts himself forgot. Everyone forgets. The recognition isn't a permanent state you achieve once and then maintain forever through perfect practice. It's more like a home you return to. Again and again. Each time you notice you've been lost in thought, that noticing itself is the return. That awareness of being identified with noise is already the silence recognizing itself. You don't have to do anything to get back to it. You don't have to achieve it again. You just notice, oh, I was lost in thought, and in that noticing, you're already home. Already the silence. Already the awareness that was never actually absent, just overlooked. And each time you return, each time you recognize again that you are the silence and not the noise, something deepens. Not because you're getting better at something, not because you're achieving a higher level or becoming more spiritual, but because the recognition itself wears away the habit of identification. Like a path through a forest that becomes clearer each time it's walked. The first time through, it's hard to see, overgrown with doubt and confusion and old patterns. But each return makes it clearer. Each recognition makes it more obvious. Not because the path is changing, but because you're becoming familiar with it, learning to recognize it more quickly, learning to trust it more completely, until eventually, even when you forget, even when you get lost in noise, there's a part of you that knows, that remembers, that can find its way back without effort. There's a silence that's been here your entire life. Before you learned language, before you developed all the thoughts and beliefs and patterns that fill your mind now, this silence was here. Before you became the person you think you are, before you took on all the identities and roles and stories, this awareness was present. And it hasn't changed. The silence that was here when you were a child, before all the mental noise accumulated, is the same silence that's here right now. It hasn't been touched by anything that's happened, hasn't been altered by any experience, hasn't been diminished by any thought. It's been constant, unchanging, always present, like the background of a painting that remains the same no matter what's painted on it, like the screen of a movie that's unchanged by whatever film is shown. And this silence, this awareness, this spacious presence is what you actually are. Not the accumulated noise, not the mental chatter that seems to define you, but the awareness in which all of that appears. The silence that was here before the noise began and will be here after the noise ends. This is the beauty Watts kept pointing to, not the beauty of achieving a perfectly quiet mind, not the beauty of eliminating all thoughts and living in some blank, empty state, but the beauty of recognizing what you are. The beauty of seeing that underneath and around and prior to all the noise, there's this silence. And it's not just silence in the sense of absence, it's silence in the sense of presence. Alive, spacious, full, and it's yours. Or rather, it's you. It's what you've always been. What you couldn't not be even if you tried. And the inner noise you've been fighting, the mental chatter you've been trying to escape, has been happening in this silence all along, appearing in this awareness, held by this spacious presence that's never been disturbed by any of it. And when you see this, when you recognize this, the relationship to the noise completely changes. It's no longer enemy, no longer obstacle, no longer the thing preventing your peace. It's just noise, just thoughts, just the natural activity of a mind doing what minds do. And you are the silence in which it all happens, the awareness that holds it all, the peace that was never dependent on the noise stopping. You don't have to become this. You don't have to achieve it or earn it or perfect yourself enough to deserve it. You already are it, right now, in this moment. The awareness reading these words is silence. The knowing that thoughts are happening is silence. The space in which your entire experience is unfolding is silence. And it's not separate from you. It's not something you have. It's what you are. Always have been. Always will be. And the search for it, the seeking of it, the effort to find it, all of that can finally stop. Not because you've found what you were looking for, but because you've recognized you never lost it, never left it, never were anything other than it. The inner noise can continue. Life can continue. Thoughts and feelings and experiences can keep arising and passing. And all of it, is happening in the silence you are, held by the awareness you've always been, contained in the spacious presence that needs nothing, lacks nothing, struggles with nothing. This is what Watts saw. This is what he spent his life trying to help people recognize, not as a distant truth or a difficult achievement, but as the most obvious, most immediate, most constantly present fact of your existence. You are silence. You are awareness. You are the space in which all experience appears. And recognizing this is not the end of inner noise. It's the end of the problem of inner noise. The end of the war with yourself? The end of the belief that something is wrong or broken or needs to be fixed. And in that ending, in that recognition, in that simple seeing of what's always been true, you find a peace that has nothing to do with whether your mind is quiet or busy. A peace that's here regardless. A peace that is what you are.